Alright, statistics for moves 6 to 9 based on over 10 million games. The evaluation is D8. Store.
Knight, f6.
C. Store.
g6.
Knight. C3.
d5.
Plans for white. Maintain the central pressure. Blanco seeks to maintain the tension in the center. The c4 and d5 laborers to restrict the activity of the black pieces and prepare to open the position at a favorable time. Piece development. Complete the development of its minor pieces. G1 horse, clear boxes, and enroll to put the kings safely. Prepare ruptures. Searched for pawns such as e4 or c5 to open the position and exploit the development or space advantage. Game on the latest flank. In some lines, Blanco can look for a game on the latest flank, for example, with a3 and b4, to win space or create a passed pawn. Plans for black. Maintain solidity. Black seeks to maintain a solid structure in the center. The e6 and d5 laborers to prevent white from obtaining a space advantage or opening dangerous lines. Solid development. Complete the development of its minor pieces. b8 horse, c8 Garry, and enroll. Central/flank counter. Find opportunities to challenge the white center with thrusts of liberating pawns, typically c5, to challenge pawn d4 and potentially create an isolated pawn or hanging pawns for white, or, less common in this structure, f5. Positional equality. The black goal is to achieve a solid and balanced position, looking for equality or small countergame opportunities.
Bishop F. Store.
Bishop, g7.
A3.
c5.
D8. Captures on C5.
Queen, a5.
Plans for white. Exploit the isolated pawn. The main white plan is to press the isolated d5 pawn, ideally blocking it with a piece like a horse and d4 or e3 and attacking it with pieces. Maintain central control. Use its spatial and central advantage to restrict black activity. Piece activity. Keep your pieces active and well coordinated. Avoid unnecessary complications. With an isolated pawn in the enemy field, white often seeks to simplify an end where the weakness of the isolated pawn is more pronounced, but must be careful with a tactical countergame that black can generate. Plans for black. Generate pieces of pieces. The isolated pawn in d5 often comes with the compensation of the greater activity of pieces and countergame potential. Black should seek to centralize its pieces, queen in f5, horses, bishops, and look for liberating ruptures such as e5 or c5 if possible to open lines. Using the queen in f5. The queen in f5 creates pressure on the flank of Blanco lady and can be an active piece in the half game. Avoid early simplification. Black usually wants to keep more pieces on the board to exploit your activity before an end. Tactical contrast. See tactical opportunities or combinations that arise from the greatest activity of their pieces.
Well, C1.
Knight, e4.
C. Captures on D5.
Knight, captures on c3.
Queen D2.
Queen, captures on a2.
Plans for white. Continue the pressure on d5. The main plan remains to press and, if possible, block and exploit the d5 isolated pawn. Activate pieces. Develop and activate its remaining pieces. For example, the tower of a1 to a central column or the latest flank, the horse of b1. Ignore or exploit the queen in a2. The queen in a2 is a bit out of play. Blanco can temporarily ignore it to focus on its own development and plans, or look for ways to exploit its passive position, for example, opening column A or B. King's security. Enforce or ensure the king's position. Plans for black. Regroup the queen. The main plan should be a better box for the queen in a2, where it can participate more actively in the game. b6, c7, d8. Generate activity. Despite the queen's passive position, black must still look for ways to generate activity with her other pieces to compensate for the isolated pawn of d5. Prepare ruptures. Search for opportunities for liberating pawns. e5, c5. Defend weak points. Ensure that your position remains solid, especially around the d5 pawn and any other weakness created by the queen's passivity.
B captures on c3.
Queen captures on d2, check.
King captures on d2.
Knight d7.
Bishop b5.
Castles kingside.
Plans for white. King's security. The priority for white is to ensure the king's position. This may involve moving it to c2 or e1, or make sure the piece is defended properly in d2. Exploit the isolated pawn. Continue with the plan to block and attack the pawn isolated from d5. Garry's activity. Place the towers in open or semi-absurd columns, probably column D or E, to increase pressure and activity. Prepare ruptures. Look for opportunities to open the position in your favor, for example, with e4/e5 or c5. Plans for black. Use the activity of pieces. With the pawn isolated from d5, the black strategy focuses on the activity and the counter game. Attacking the position of the white king. The unusual position of the king of Blanco in d2 can be an objective. Black can try to open lines to the center to exploit this situation. Prepare liberating ruptures. Search for pawns like e5 or c5 to open the position and activate your pieces. Coordination. Ensure that your pieces are well coordinated for attack or defense.
Bishop captures on d7.
Bishop captures on d7.
Sword
f5.
a5.
e6.
Plans for white. Use of the central majority. Blanco has an advanced pawns in the center, c5, d5, e4. The plan is to use these pawns to gain space, restrict black and potentially create a passed pawn. Attack on the king's flank. With the pawn's chain pointing towards the flank of king and black, white can concentrate pieces there for an attack. Activity of pieces. Bring more pieces to the attack, especially the towers and the horse. Keep the structure. Avoid black to dismantle its pawn's chain or relieve pressure. Plans for black. Contain the central majority. Black should try to stop the advance of the central white pawns and prevent them from creating a dangerous passed pawn. Flanco countergame. Search countergame on the flanks, especially where Blanco has less presence, perhaps the latest flank, with b6 or a5, or a counterattack in the center, with c6 or f5 if possible. Piece activity. Use your pieces to defend weak points and look for tactical opportunities. Solid defense. Prepare to defend against a possible attack on the king's flank.
C. Store.
Rook F C8.
C6.
B. Captures on C6.
D6.
C5.
H. Store.
Plans for white. Maintain the blocked structure. In blocked positions, horses are usually superior to the bishops, especially if the bishops are restricted by their own pawns. White can try to keep the position closed to exploit this potential advantage. King's flank game. With the pawn's chain pointing to the king's flank, Blanco can try a flank attack with his pieces, horses, towers, queen, and pawns, g4, h4. Horses maneuvers. Search advanced positions for their horses on the king's flank or in the center. Prepare flank ruptures. Identify and prepare pawns breaks on the king's flank, g4, h4, to open the position in your favor. Plans for black. Flanco contra game. With a blocked center, black must look counter game on the flanks. The movement. c5 opens column c for black towers and creates a potential passed pawn in c. You can also look for play on the king's flank with pawn thrust, such as f5 or g5. Activate parts. Maneuver your pieces, especially bishops, to positions where they are more active, despite the closed structure. Use of open columns. Use column C and potentially the FOG if they open for the activity of the towers. Avoid unfavorable exchanges. Avoid exchanges of pieces that leave your alphas against higher horses in a blocked position.
H6.
Knight. H3.
A5.
F3.
A4.
Plans for white. Contain the latest flank counter. Respond to the F4 advance, deciding whether to capture, ignore or counterattack on the latest flank. Continue the game on the king's flank. Keep the focus on its own attack on the king's flank, taking advantage of the blocked structure. Parts maneuvers. Reorganize pieces to defend the latest flank if necessary or to intensify the attack on the king's flank. Evaluate ruptures. Consider whether there is any favorable pawns break in the king's flank or in the center to open the position. Plans for black. Pressure on the latest flank. Use a4 advance to gain space on the latest flank and prepare the activity of its pieces, tower, over8, queen, in that area. Creating a passed pawn. The objective of a4 advance can be to create a last pawn on the latest flank. General counter-game. Continue looking for an active counter-game on flanks to compensate for the white pressure or central restriction. Prepare the activity of the tower over8. The A4 movement opens or prepares to open column for the tower over8.
Well, H1.
A3.
Knight. F2.
A2.
Knight. D3.
Rook A3.
Plans for white. Evaluate the threat of RA3. Determine where the tower of A3 is directed and what potential threats creates. Attack on the king's flank. Pressure in the third row. Prepare for king's flank defense. If the tower goes to the king's flank, Blanco must reinforce his defense there. Continue your own attack plan. Do not deviate from your attack plans on the king's flank or your pieces of pieces. Search for counter-attack opportunities to divert black resources. Plans for black tower transfer and flank attack. The main plan behind RA3 is to transfer the tower to the king's flank to participate in the attack. IG 3 francs 3 R 3G 3 R 3H 3. Increase the pressure on the king's flank. Coordinate the tower in A3 with other pieces. Alpha in G7, horse in E7/F6/G6, pawns to launch an attack against the white king. Use of the third row. Use the third row as a route for your pieces to invade or create threats. Maintain solidity in other sectors. Ensure that the rest of its position is solid enough to allow the attack on the king's flank.
Well, A1,
G5,
H captures on G5,
H captures on G5,
bishop captures on G5,
King F7,
bishop F sword,
Rook B8,
well, A1,
Bishop C6,
well, C3,
Rook A5,
well, C2,
Rook B8,
knight C1. If you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.